We are now beginning on the top of Daf Gimel Amud Beis in Brachos, Daf 3b in Brachos. The Gemara finished off by asking a question. The Gemara said that a person should not enter into a churva, into a destroyed area into a destroyed area, and the Gemara gave three reasons. The Gemara said one possible reason is because of demons, because of mazikin. Another possible reason is because of chashad, is because of concern that the person is with a woman, and the last possible reason, mapolis, is that it's going to fall down. So the Gemara asked, why should we give the reason of chashad? Don't we have the reason of mapolis? In other words, why should chashad alone ever be a reason? The Gemara answers bechadati. So we're talking about a new churba. It was recently fell down. There's no concern of mapolis. We're not worried it's going to fall down on you, but there is a concern of chashad. The Gemara says v'teipaklei misha mazikin. But still, we should be concerned about mazikin. We should be concerned about shadim. How can you have a scenario where the only concern is chashad? The Gemara answers betray. We're talking about when you have two people going into this churba, and the assumption of the Gemara is that with two people you have no concern of demons, no concern of mazikin. So therefore, two people going into a new churba, the only concern you're going to have is chashad, is suspicion that they are going with a woman. The Gemara says, "I betray chashad nami leka." Wait a minute. If there's two people, there should not be a concern of chashad. There should not be a concern of being with women. As Rashi here points out, a woman can be with two men. It's not a problem of yichud. There's no concern. So what's going on over here? I betray chashad nami leka. The Gemara answers betray upritze. Two people who are not kosher people, two people who are known for doing these kind of things. So that is a situation where you have a concern of chashad even with two people. The Gemara now goes on to try to figure out both mapolis and by mazikin, how can you have a scenario where the only concern are those? So mipnei hamapolis, it may fall down on you. How can you have a situation where the only concern of going into a churba is that it may fall down? Gemara says, v'teipaklei misham chashad umazikin. What about the reasons of chashad and mazikin? Betray v'kashri. We're talking about if you have two people and they're kosher people. So in such a situation, you have no concern with mazikin because there's two of them. You have no concern with chashad because you have two kosher people. Gemara now finishes off, mipnei hamazikin. What about the scenario where your only concern is the mazikin, is only that the demons are going to be a danger? What about the reasons of chashad, a suspicion with a woman, and mapolis, that it may fall down? Gemara answers, bechurba chadati uvitrei v'kashri. We're talking about a new churba, we're talking about two people, and we're talking about kosher people, and therefore there's no concern of chashad, there's no concern that it's going to fall down. But the Gemara says, 1 second, if it's two people, there should be no concern of mazikin either. I betray mazikin nami leka. If we're talking about two people, there should be no concern of mazikin. Gemara says, b'mekomon chayshinan. This is in a place where mazikin have been seen, so even with two people, there is a suspicion. If you want, we can give another reason. Liolam bechad uverchor bechadati. One person entering a new churba to koi bedabra. But this churba is in a field. Dehasa misham chashad leka. So even though it's only one person, there is no concern of chashad. There's no concern that the person is going with a woman. Da'isha bedabra lo shlicha. A woman in this area of the field is not common, umisham mazikanika, but there is, of course, still a concern of mazik and of demons, even out in the field. And so therefore the Gemara has now come up with scenarios, each type of scenario where you only have one of the three concerns, chashad, mazikin, or mapolis. Now the Gemara, the two dots here, discusses what was brought up before, how many mishmaros, how many watches are in the night. We saw before the opinion of the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer, there are 3 watches in the night. Now we're going to see that it's actually subject to a machlokas tanoim in a brisa. Tanur Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa. Arba mishmaros hava halayla, there are 4 mishmaros, 4 watches in the night. Divrei Rabbi, that's the opinion of Rabbi. Rabbi Nassan Omer Shalosh, Rabbi Nassan says there are 3. My time with Rabbi Nassan. What's the reason of Rabbi Nassan? Because it says in the pasuk in the Navi, Vayavo Gidon u'me'ish asher ito b'ktzei ha'machane rosh ha'ashmoras hatichona. It says Gidon came with 100 men at the beginning of the middle mishmar. The middle implies, Tana, we learned in a brayso, ein tichona l'sheyesh l'faneh u'li'achrea. Tichona implies, middle implies that there's one before and one after, that there are 3 mishmaros in the evening. V'Rebbe my tichon, and Rebbe will respond to you. What does it mean? Middle achas minatichona shabetichonos. It's one of the 2 middle mishmaros. Rabbi Nassan will respond miksiv tichona shabetichonos. It doesn't say the middle of the 2 middle ones. Tichona ksiv, it simply says middle, and therefore it indicates that there are only 3. My time with the Rebbe. What's the reason of Rebbe? Rebbe again says that there are 4 mishmaros in the evening. What is the reason of Rebbe? Amar Rabbi Zreika, Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Zreika says in the name of Rabbi Ami, in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Kosav Echad Omer Chatzos Laila Akum Lahodis Lecha Al Mishpatei Tzidkecha. One pasuk says that David HaMelech gets up at midnight. I wake up in order to praise you. V'Chosav Echad Omer. One pasuk says Kidmu Einai Ashmoros. I wake up 2 mishmaros early. So Ha'ketzad, how does this work out mathematically? Arba mishmaros have a halayla. The simplest way is there are 4 mishmaros in the evening. If there are 4 mishmaros in the evening and he wakes up at midnight, he's waking up 2 mishmaros early, 2 mishmaros before the sun rises. Rabbi Nassan savar look Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Nassan, however, holds like Rabbi Yoshua. The Tanan Rabbi Yoshua Omer Rabbi Yoshua says Ad Sholosh shows that a person has in the morning to say the Kriya Shema of the morning 3 hours into the day. Here's the key line: Shekain derech malachim lamod b'shalosh shos. What's the reason? We have to say the Kriya Shema of the morning when we get up. When do kings get up? They get up 3 hours into the day. So David HaMelech was saying he gets up early. He was saying in reference to other kings. Now, if you start at midnight, Shis Delilah, you have 6 hours left from midnight until the day starts. That's 6 hours because there are 12 hours in the night. Vitarti the Yamama, 2 hours that the regular kings are sleeping during the day. Haveluhu shtei mishmaros. That gives you 8 hours. 6 plus 2. 8 hours is 2 mishmaros. Why is it 2 mishmaros? Because according to Rabbi Nassan, there are 3 mishmaros in the evening. Each mishmar has 4 hours. 8 hours therefore comes out to 2 mishmaros. Ravashi Amar Ravashi says a simpler answer for Rabbi Nassan: Mishmaro upal ganami mishmaros karlu. According to Rabbi Nassan, he woke up 1 mishmar and a half early. That can be called plural mishmaros. It doesn't necessarily mean 2 mishmaros. We are now at the 2 dots. The Amar Rabbi Zreika, Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. The Gemara now quotes the same set of Amoraim we did before. Since we quoted Rabbi Zreika in the name of Rabbi Ami, in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, we do it once again, a statement from him. Ein omrin b'fnei hameis ela dvarav shel meis. When we're eulogizing a mace, when we're eulogizing a dead person, we only say words that the mace himself said. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Kahana. Rabbi Abba bar Kahana says, Lo aman ela b'divrei Torah. This is only true by divrei Torah that he said. Aval mile dialma les lanbo. When it comes to things he said that were not Torah, not a concern. V'ika diamri. Others say, Amar Rabbi Abba bar Kahana lo aman ela afila b'divrei Torah. V'kol shekein mile dialma. So he says that no, it's even by divrei Torah, certainly by mile dialma, this would also be true. Now the Gemara returns to the issue of David HaMelech when he woke up in the morning. V'David, b'palgo delel yahavekoi. Did David really wake up halfway through the night at midnight? Didn't he get up much earlier at the beginning of the evening? Tichsiv, it says, Kidamti b'neshef v'ashaveya. I got up at Neshef. The Gemara now assumes that Neshef means he got up early in the night. Now, how do you know that Neshef is night? Tichsiv b'neshef be'erev yom b'ishon laila v'afela. It says explicitly in the pasuk, Neshef is b'ishon laila v'afela, when it starts to get dark. Amar Rav Oshia, Amar Rabbi Acha. Rav Oshia says in the name of Rabbi Acha, Hachi ka'amar David. Here's what David was actually saying: Me'olam lo avar alai chatzos laila b'sheina. I never passed midnight as I was sleeping. Meaning, I was always up at midnight. Maybe I was up earlier sometimes, but always I was up at midnight. Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Zera says, Ad chatzos laila ha'imisnam neim kesus. Until midnight, he was drowsing like a sus. He was sleeping like a horse. Then he awoke and he rose with strength like a lion. So he was up, but he was up more vigorously at midnight. Ravashi said, Ad chatzos laila hayosik b'divrei Torah. Until chatzos, he was up learning Torah. Mikan va'ilach b'shiros v'sishbachos. And he meant to say that from midnight onward, shiros v'sishbachos, songs and praises of Hashem. Gemara now asks on this word Neshef. V'neshef orsa, who is Neshef actually the night? HaNeshef tzafra, we have another source that indicates that Neshef is the morning. Tichsiv, as it says, Vayakim David mehon Neshef v'yad ho'erev l'machrasam. David hit them from Neshef until Erev. If Erev is evening, Neshef seems to be morning. My love, what does this not mean? Mitzafra v'ad lelya. He hit the enemy from morning until night. Gemara says, Lo, me orsa v'yad orsa. Maybe it means from night till night, 24 hours. So the Gemara says, if so, lichsov meha neshef yad ha-neshef o meha erev yad ha-erev. It should say the word neshef twice, or it should say the word erev twice. Neshef ad neshef, erev ad erev. Why does it say from neshef till erev? Elomar Rava, rather Rava says, trei nashvei havi. There are 2 neshefs. Neshef could refer to 2 things. Neshef lelya v'asi yamama, it could mean the night turning to day. Neshef yamama v'asi lelya could mean the day turning to night. The key is that Neshef always means the transition from either day to night or night to day, and depending on the context, that's how we know. So therefore, it could very well be that Neshev does mean night in the pasuk that discusses when he woke up. Now the Gemara asks how David was able to be awake at midnight, or how did he know when midnight was? V'David mi havayada palaga delelia emas. How did David know when halfway through the night, when midnight was? Hashta now, Moshe Rabbeinu lo havayada. Moshe Rabbeinu himself did not know when midnight is. T'chsiv, as it says, kachatzos halayla ani yotzei b'soch Mitzrayim. Like midnight, I will go into Mitzrayim. This is talking about Makas Bechoros, when the firstborn of Mitzrayim were killed. So Moshe Rabbeinu reports that Hashem says, Kachatzos halayla. I'm going to go in around midnight. My Kachatzos. Why does that say? Why doesn't it say exactly? What does it mean about midnight? Ilema, if you're going to say, Damarle Kodesh Barichu Kachatzos. God himself said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself said, Kachatzos, about midnight. Mi Yikosveka Kame Shemaya. There's no doubt in heaven. If it's going to be midnight, it's going to be exactly midnight. Ella do Amar Le, rather he said to him, Bachatzos. Rather, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Bachatzos at exactly midnight. V'yasa iyu v'yamar Kachatzos, and Moshe Rabbeinu said around midnight. Alma Mesafkale. So you see that Moshe Rabbeinu was in doubt exactly when midnight was. So that's why he said about. To him, it's about midnight. He doesn't have an exact count. So how did David know? David have a yada, yet David knew. How do we understand that? The Gemara answers, David simona havale. David had a sign, a siman of when midnight was. The Yamar Rav Acha bar Bizna, Rabbi Shimon Chasida. Rav Acha bar Bizna says in the name of Rabbi Shimon Chasida, Kinor hayatolei l'ma'ala mimitaso shel David. There was a harp that was sitting above the bed of David HaMelech v'kevan shigiach atzos layla. When midnight came, bo ruach tzefonis v'no sheves bo, a wind came and it blew on it, u'menagin me'elav, and it would make music on its own. Miyad haya omeid v'osik b'Torah. At that point, he would get up and he would be able to learn Torah because this kinor would play music. Ad sha'ol amud hashachar, and he would do this until the dawn came. Kevan sha'ol amud hashachar. Once dawn came, nichnasu chachmi Yisrael etzlo. The chachamim of Yisrael, the wise people, came before him. Amrulo, and they said to him, Adonenu hamelech, our master the king. Amcha Yisrael tzrichin parnasa. Your nation Israel, your nation Yisrael needs parnasa, needs sustenance. Amar lahem, he said to them, Lechu v'isparnasu zemizeh, go and take parnasa from one another. Amrulo, they said to me, the fistful, the small amount, can't satisfy the lion. The pit cannot be filled from the dirt that has just been dug up from it. There's not enough to sustain everybody. What do we do? Amar lahem, David HaMelech said to them, go and take from the spoils of war. Miyad yoatzim b'Achitofel. At that point, they took advice from Achitofel. V'nimlochen b'Sanhedrin, also from the Sanhedrin. V'sharalin b'Urim v'Tumim, and they asked from the Urim v'Tumim, and in that way they were able to go to war in order to decide whether they'd have atzlacha, whether they would succeed in war to get the spoils of war. Amar Rav Yosef says, Ma'ikra. What pasuk tells us that this was the way that they decided whether or not to go to war? T'chsiv, like it says, V'acharei Achitofel b'Nayo ben Yehoyada v'Evyasar v'Sar tzvo l'melech Yoav. These are the different people that gave this advice. Achitofel ze yoetz. Achitofel in this pasuk refers to the advisor. V'chein hu omer v'atzas Achitofel asher yoatz b'yomim ha'hem kasher yishal ish b'dvar Elokim. In those days, asking the advice of Achitofel was like asking the man of God. The Gemara will go on in the next daf to tell us what the meaning of Benayo ben Yehoyada was, and what the meaning of Evyasar and Sar Tzva l'melech Yoav, all the different parts of the pasuk. This concludes Daf Gimel Amud Beis. We will continue with Daf Dalem Amud Aleph and Brachos Daf 4a in the next video.